I started Shadow of the Erdtree under half an hour ago, and I now have a Scadutree blessing level of 11. For reference, that's the same level I entered the late game at on my first playthrough, and I haven't killed a single remembrance boss yet. In this video, I'll show you 2 routes for massively upping your defense and damage in under half an hour for any DLC build you make. The first route is completely spoiler-free, combat-free, beginner-friendly, and gets you to Scadutree level 9. The second is a little extension to the first, which accesses a later game area by killing a manageable mini-boss, for those of you who want to muck about on your second playthrough. And then right at the end, I'll show you what all this setup does to a remembrance boss. So, take a look at that breathtaking view, light the first grace, and let's get going. From the gravesite plain grace, we're going to head east onto the road and follow it down into the forest. Stick to the left of the road and give the fire dog a wide berth to stop him aggroing. Ride into the side of the church to avoid the Black Knight and grab our first 2 Scadutree Fragments for our first Realm of Shadow level up. This is the single item we are focusing on in this setup guide. The fragments allow you to raise both your defense and damage in the DLC's new replacement for the leveling system, and they are really, really effective. After grabbing the map, head around the Scorch Ruin and ride straight towards the Scadutree. This will lead you to this chap, showing off his big shiny pot. Kill him for a fragment. Jump back on Torrent and ride west towards this ruin in the distance, and slowly arc round to the right to squeeze between the bird and the big fella. Light the 3-path cross grace, grab another fragment and speak to this NPC. Now, NPC quest lines are going to be a lot more relevant for my DLC playthroughs for reasons that I won't go into yet because of spoilers. But after a bit of testing, I've come up with a questline route that makes life a whole lot easier. I do reserve the right to amend this in the future though, if a more efficient route emerges. Check the pinned comment for any future changes. As you can see, we're heading up to the game's first legacy dungeon, Ballarat. But we're not heading in. Light the grace outside, grab another fragment, speak to Arnsbark, this friendly bearded chap. Now we're going to double back and follow the cliff edge round to the right to get ourselves to Prospect Town. Ride to the right of the town and into this graveyard on the raised platform to find another shiny pot man and kill him for a fragment. Now walk back to the 3-path cross grace and northeast over the bridge towards Castle Ensis. Through the encampment, grab the fragment on the right at the T-junction, then head further on to light the castle front grace. Now we head southeast out of the encampment, keeping to the left of the road and hugging the cliff edge. This will bring you to the Pillar Path cross grace, where we can grab another fragment and speak to Theoliet. Now walk back to the castle front and head southeast again, except this time hugging the building to the left more tightly until you see some cliffs we can drop down. Now, if you're still chopping about in the starting area and having a good time, feel free to leave it here for now. What we're doing by dropping down these cliffs is like riding round the side of Stormvale to Liurnia in the base game. While it's likely intended for you to do Ballarat and Castle Ensis beforehand, this little route to the second area was obvious enough for me to do it without realising on my first playthrough. When you're at the bottom, keep heading southeast while sticking close to the cliffs on your left. We're heading towards a new addition to Elden Ring, in the form of a broken spirit spring. These are spirit springs that are locked until you hit a rock in a nearby place in that area. The rock that unlocks this one is over there somewhere. But yeah, just like the fire pillars in the base game, Moog or Margit Shackle will activate these. Jump up the spirit spring to another, then into the second area, Scadu Altus and the Fort of Reprimand. Run through the fort, jumping past this omen killer, light the Grace, then straight out of the front gate to light the Morth Highway South Grace. Just to the east, you'll find a road heading north. Stick to the right to keep out of the way of the massive punch-up going on between the soldiers and the dragon. And hug the right cliff until you find another broken spirit spring. Use the shackle, then up to ride southeast for the Scadutree Cross Grace and another fragment. Then walk back to the Morth Highway South Grace. North up the same road, sticking to the right again, but this time aiming for these structures here. When you're over the brow of the hill, you'll see another shiny pot gent chilling in this crater. Be careful here because crazy spinny guy of doom is his mate and will aggro while you're killing him. Jump on Torrent and ride northwest until the Grace comes into view for another fragment. There's another 2 fragments very close by. First, ride northeast, down into this river, for one in front of the statue. Then walk back to the Grace. From here, across the road into this little camp for another. Now head north along the cliffs until you can double back on yourself and follow the road south for the High Road Cross Grace and another fragment. You want to speak to Leda here too. Now follow the road north, grabbing the Mac fragment just before the encampment, then the Scadutree fragment on the right as you enter the camp. You need to be a little careful with the furnace golem here if you haven't leveled up your spirit blessing, as Torrent will get one shot. For the spirit blessings, you'll actually find a bunch following this guide, as many are very close to Scadutree fragments, but I wasn't bothered about getting them for this video. Now for an optional step that first timers and newcomers can ignore for now. Into the Shadow Keep and up to light the Grace. For the final part of the beginner setup, we're going to walk back to the High Road Cross, back up to the map fragment before going west to the church for 2 more Scad frags. If you're being speedy, just let the invader here kill you. So if you're doing your first playthrough of Shadow of the Erdtree and following guides, here is a good place to stop. You'll have a Realm of Shadow level of 9 and be more than capable of monstering the early game. In the next part of the guide, I'll fight a mid-game side boss and head to an area that I promise you will appreciate more if you find it yourself. You have been warned. Okay, so respawn back to the High Road Cross and warp to the Grace that we lit in the Shadow Keep. Now the one caveat to getting to level 11 in under half an hour is that assumes that you can kill this hippo in a few tries. His moveset isn't super complicated, so I think with time, this will become pretty manageable for most. The hippo drops 2 fragments. After resting at the Grace and spending the runes if you want to, head into the Shadow Keep. Run straight through the outside area, doing a double roll at the midpoint of these stairs to avoid the ambush. Then when you get to the Black Knight room, keep to the right to avoid both of them. You'll probably need to roll an arrow like I did. Run past everything on the rooftop and head to the lift. Now I did this about a dozen times while figuring out this route, and this dude never jumped on the lift with me once. Which, obviously, because this is a From Software game, means that he'll definitely do it 3 times in a row to some poor fucker trying to follow this. Let me know if you're that person. Light the specimen storehouse, Grace. Then into the first room on the left to get to the lift. At the bottom, take the first right and into the room on your left to jump down and run straight ahead. The next section is super linear, so just follow your nose. Now for one of the most beautiful areas in any game I've ever played. The ancient ruins of Ra. Now this section feels like a complete maze, so I'm just going to shut up and let you watch the full route I took here for the final 3 fragments. Now the eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that I am 1 fragment short of my shadow level 11, and that's because whether you choose to head into Bellarat, Castle Ensis, or even the Shadow Keep for your first Remembrance boss, along the way in all 3, you will find 1 more Scadutree Fragment. If you haven't fully completed Castle Ensis, thanks for watching and stop the video now. Because now I wanted to test to see what this setup route does to a boss that kicked me round the boss room like a ragdoll the first time I fought her. As you can tell, I haven't learned this fight properly yet. I'm actually super interested to see what this setup does to the flow of the DLC. So I'm going to use this as the basis for the first all fragments build guide and see what changes from my far lower leveled first playthrough. If that sounds good to you and you want to see a shit ton more build guides and tutorials for this masterpiece of a DLC, subscribe to the channel. As always, thanks for watching. See you soon.